What if? What if that thing that you are worried about turns out better than you expected? What if that dream you have that you've never really fully admitted to yourself because you're worried that it makes you a bad person to have dreams like that because you're in a messed up culture that tells you that ambition is always inherently wrong? What if that dream is A, fine, and B, could happen, and C, would actually be bigger and better and more of a blessing in your life and your family's life than you even imagine? That's what we're going to talk about today. The power of that what if moment. And later, I'm going to play a clip from David Goggins. He has the greatest what if moment. And you guys know David Goggins. I love him. He is in that category of people who, you know, sometimes I just need a man to get on Instagram in the morning and shout at me about how I'm being lazy. And I love it. And David Goggins takes it to the nth degree. It's like, just because the wind chill is -4 and it's snowing and your city's covered in ice and you have a fever of 103.8, why wouldn't you do your 20-mile jog? Why would you not do that? It's because you're lazy. That's why. And I'm sitting there, you know, I haven't moved my body in a few days and I never exercise and I'm warm in my bed, but I like it. I'm like, oh, I needed to hear that. I am being lazy. I need to kick it up. And Lord knows I'm not even going to jog half a mile even in nice weather, but I like someone yelling at me and telling me I'm lazy. So anyway, David Goggins has a great story that he tells where, so he was an exterminator. He was 300 pounds, life going nowhere, came from a super emotionally neglectful and abusive and physically abusive background. I mean, just did not receive the love that a kid needs or even a fraction of it. And then he thought he might want to change his life. And this is dumb. His thought process was dumb. He thought, I'm a 300-pound exterminator with no connection to the Navy SEALs living in some random town in Illinois. What if I became a Navy SEAL? It's like, that's a crazy, like, you can't do that. And he went to a recruiter, and the recruiter, I get the impression that the recruiter was not trying to be rude. The recruiter was also black and said to him, look, there have only been 35 black Navy SEALs in the whole history of this organization. And he's sitting here looking at Goggins like, yeah, and you're you're 300 pounds. Like, you've never done anything. He had also failed out of school. He had some learning disabilities, and you have to pass certain tests as well to get into that program, maybe to even get into the Navy at all. But Goggins had just severely struggled academically. And so this recruiter, my impression from hearing the story many times, is that the guy wasn't trying to be a jerk. He was just trying to say, let's not spin your wheels on this, son. You know, that is obviously, it's not going to happen. So why don't you dream a little bit more realistically? And now today, David Goggins is David Goggins. I have seen the power of what if in my own life. It's a very powerful thing when you flip that switch and you flip into what if it's great? What if it's good? What if it works out mode? Especially for those of us who might have come from cultures where pessimism was elevated almost as a virtue. Like, if you assume the world's going to hell in a handbasket and you got to pinch every penny because you never know what terrible thing is coming around the corner. I mean, that's a lot of people come from a culture like that where it's like you're a good, moral, upstanding person if you assume that everything is terrible and getting worse. So it was a real switch that flipped in my mind when I stepped into this what if mentality. But what if it did work? But what if this is not totally crazy? So that's what we're going to talk about today. As usual, we will get to the main topic in the second half of the show. The first half, I will talk about some new enemies. My suite of enemies is ever expanding. So I've got a few new people who I truly despise and wish ill on them. And I have one of my more embarrassing stories. I am an embarrassing human being who truly should never leave the house. When I tell you that I should not leave the house ever, you might think it's like that's her shtick. She's a comedian. She makes it sound like she does silly things to entertain us. When I tell you this story, you'll be like, well, maybe you should kind of stay home more, like not try to be around other people. So we will get to that as well. And then the main topic in the second half. And don't forget that I have some shows coming up today. I am performing in Ponte, Vedra Beach, which is outside of Jacksonville, Florida. I will be getting up at 4:00 in the morning, flying in on the day of, because I never miss Halloween with my family. So that'll be, I might be a little loopy on stage, but it'll be a great show. Next day is Orlando. Then we have Atlanta. Atlanta is coming up soon. And then we have the filming of my special in Houston, Texas, worth flying out for. This is a very, very, very big deal to me, filming my next comedy special in Houston. And then after that, we have my show in Austin. Notice I'm not saying dates because I always get them wrong. That Caitlin can tell you. Every time I say a date of a show, I get it wrong. So, but we established last time, for whatever reason, when I know what feast day it is, I don't mess that up. So my Austin show, it's a showcase show. I perform as well as some other comics who are great. That is on the Feast of St. Nicholas. So we don't know what date that is. Even if you're not Catholic, you're going to have to learn saints' feast days in order to know when to go to my tour. Whose feast day is on November 15th. Caitlin, is my Houston show November 15th?
Yes, November 15th.
So the feet of Albertus Magnus. I love it. Some obscure saint that no one has heard of. It can just allow me to be so pretentious that I can say, hey, Jen, when are you filming your special? On the feast of Albertus Magnus. And then when they act like they don't know, I'm like, well, that's what you get for being Protestant. Like, that's, if you were walking with the Lord, you would know. Meanwhile, like, the Pope doesn't know when that feast is. No one has heard of this feast. So yes, on the feast of Albertus Magnus, I will be filming my comedy special in Houston. And we even have a special jingle so that you know where to find all of this information.
Jen Fulwiler is hitting the road on the maternal instinct tour, so watch where she goes. Just go to jfcomedytour.com, jfcomedytour.com.
So I just saw on Instagram, before, I haven't even introduced the show, I will in a minute, but while we're talking about my tour, this amazing woman, super talented, who I've just followed her on Instagram for a long time. I don't know her well, wish I did, but I did. She's just been around. She seemed really creative and interesting. Caitlin, can you play this video? You can look it up, jfonyoutube.com. She has tickets to my show, and she posted this on her Instagram main feed and on TikTok, Apollonia Davalos. Look at this video. I have it muted because I don't think I have the copyright to play the sound she's using. So she's hot. I'm telling you, my shows are like all the local hot women come out, and she's so stylish. See, that's an example. She's wearing this outfit. It's like these really cool, rich chocolate colored pants and a fun jacket over a white shirt. And it looks so smashing. I would never know to put these things together. I like not in 1,000 years would I understand how that works. So she is dancing. She includes hashtag Jen Fulwiler. Mm-hmm. She does the name of my tour. And it does make me wonder, where are the rest of you on this? Where are the dancing videos when you are coming out to my tour? I have questions for the rest of you. Why are you not all posting hot dancing videos of yourselves coming out to my tour? Apollonia Davalos on Instagram, TikTok. You got to look her up. She's super creative and doing a lot of great things. And I just really appreciate that video. Okay. Now I can introduce the show. Welcome to the Jen Fulwiler Show, coming to you from Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Jen Fulwiler. I'm a stand-up comic, best-selling author, and mom of 6. I had 6 babies in 8 years, no twins, just all craziness. This podcast is where you learn the art of the village hustle. That's being a hot girl boss who knows that love and family and community are the foundations of all true success. Caitlin White is our lovely producer, and we publish new episodes every Wednesday morning. And you can get premium content on Patreon. We update the Patreon multiple times per week. There is always fresh new content. I put a lot of effort into adding great stuff for you guys. That link is in the show notes. And you can also go to patreon.com/thisisjen. Don't forget that I read every one of your Apple Podcast reviews personally. We are recording this one a little early, so I don't have my summary of your reviews just yet. But I will say that I read each one personally, and they mean the world to me. This show is a little touch and go because we are recording it during Halloween week and a week where I have 2 back-to-back shows in 2 different cities. It's a little touch and go. The heater is out at my house, so it's nice to be here in the studio where we actually have some warmth. And then we are on a time crunch because Caitlin is she has to go pick up I'm sorry. See, we don't edit this podcast. We do this as live. When did you say you had to leave?
2:30.
Oh, 2:30. Okay, good. Oh, I thought she said 1:30. I was like, and that's it for this episode. You cue the exit music. Like, okay, good. But this, I actually said that tangent kind of live here so that you know that we are living real lives just like you, that we had to jump in and start this thing because I had an appointment with my personal trainer, so we couldn't start before that. But then Caitlin has to go across town and pick up kids, and we're like, all right, we're doing this as live, like just like when I was on the radio. Let's make this work. So it is. This podcast is very much part of our village hustle lifestyle. Okay, let us begin with me establishing to you that I am the most embarrassing human being in the world who absolutely should not leave the house ever. So Caitlin, you do not even know this story because I did want for you to continue to associate with me, and I was not sure that would happen if you knew this story. Let me give you some backstory. A bit of storytelling music, please, Caitlin. I am filming a new comedy special in Houston, Texas, on the feast of St. Albertus Magnus, as you do. It's the only date to film a special. I'm investing a lot of my money in this one, more so than usual. Because of this, I am being a real girl boss about this situation. A real girl boss. I am taking no chances on it not coming out well. So I went down to Houston just to do a hair and makeup trial run with the producer had found a makeup artist who he'd worked with before, and he said was great, and I believe she was great. But sometimes even great makeup artists they're just not gelling with your vision for what you want your face to look like. And in a comedy special, your face matters a lot. Yeah. So and then also I recently cut bangs, and so we have to make sure that we have properly figured out how to handle the bangs situation, all that. So it is a lot of extra effort to be making special trips down just for trial runs. But this is the kind of thing I talk about on the Village Hustle Patreon. And in fact, I was talking about it, I think this week, is if there is one outcome that is totally unacceptable, then you have to move heaven and earth to optimize against that situation playing out. So for example, one outcome that would be unacceptable is me hating the way I look on this special, because we will be cutting up clips And I mean, I will be seeing this on my own social media for a very long time after it is released. And imagine if I hated the way I look on it. So I went down to Houston for that. And I also got on a show that the club was doing. Comedy clubs often do showcase shows where it's 10, 12 people going up and performing. And I asked them if I could stop into that show and perform so that I've actually done something on their stage. So they had a bunch of really cool comics, like very hip young guys, on this show. They're all very good. And this very cool guy, just cool. I don't know how to describe him other than that. He was up shortly after me, so I did my set. It went well. That was very encouraging because I had nothing in common with anyone in the room. It was, if you had hand selected a group of people to be people that I have the least in common with in life, that would be this room. And my comedy still landed, which was very encouraging. So I kind of stand out. I'm the only woman on the show, only one who does a clean set. So I go back after my performance and I'm sitting behind this kind of bar area watching the other shows. And this young comic, the cool guy, so he walks up to me because he's heading over to where he waits to do his set. And what he was actually doing was he went to give me a fist bump. That is customary among people in comedy. You fist bump each other to say like good set. That is a way of saying good set without having to talk. I should know this. It happens all the time. Fist bumping is a big thing in comedy. First of all, before I tell you what happened, I think maybe fist bumping is actually where it fell apart because it is also common to fist bump when the host brings you up. Like, everybody, please welcome, Jen Fulwiler. More than once, I have overanalyzed this, and when I'm walking to the stage, I act like I'm going to fist bump, and then I change it at the last minute. I'm like, oh, is he not giving fist bump body language? Are we going to shake hands? And then what I will do is, because I have given the wrong signals, the host guy, his hand will now be in a fist. And I go to reach out like a handshake, and I end up just like grabbing his fist with my claw hand. And then sometimes I'm like, does he want a hug? Because I don't want to be rude and not hug him if that's what we're doing. And so then I pull this random young guy who I don't know at all and have never met in for like sort of a halfway hug. So I'm like claw grabbing his fist and then putting my arm around his back. And by the way, this isn't even the embarrassing moment. For me, that's just me being on a show. Yeah. Oh, that's every time. I don't even mention that to you guys because it happens every time. So when you have a brain like this, things like fist bumping are not natural. And I want to say how impressed I am with those of you you just have a bro-y type of personality. Caitlin is like this, and broy, whatever. Make it specific to your gender. Broy meaning, if someone walks up and daps you up, you know how to respond to that, and you don't have to think about it. If someone's like, "Hey man, what's up?" and they put out their hand, you're not like, ah. You're like, oh, okay, so we're doing a fist bump or we're shaking hands. There are people like that. Actually, two of my kids are like that. 2 of the 4 are like normal people. And we talk about this a lot. The rest of us are like, wow, what would it be like to be like that? You can be around other people and it's not complicated and you can just chill with them and you don't have to think about every single interaction and put it in a spreadsheet in order to know what to do. That would be amazing. I can't even imagine. Human interactions are very difficult and complicated for me. So it's not like, to you bro-y people, you just be like fist bump done. But it's not that simple. You know what? Maybe the problem's not me. Maybe the problem is you guys, that you're just, you act like it's so simple that someone puts their fist out and then you just hit their fist. Like, it's not that simple, okay? So I'm actually starting to think the problem is not me. So just because every other comic I've ever been on a show with fist bumps me after my set, that doesn't mean that's what this guy was doing. So he does extend his fist. So he's walking in front of me. I'm sitting at this bar, and he holds his fist kind of over the bar. But he was using his phone to read his notes. He was taking his phone up on stage to use it for notes. So in his fist hand was his phone. And the camera was pointed at me, the front-facing camera, because that's just how he was holding it. But it was like upright. And so I see a camera being put in my face. I didn't notice the fist. I only noticed the lenses on the nice iPhone 14 camera that he had. So I did what I thought he was trying to take a picture. Now, I didn't know why he would do that. I knew he had no idea who I am. No one in that room had any idea, nor did they care who I was. So I didn't know why he might desire a picture of me, but I'm a people pleaser. And so I swear to you, this is true. I started posing because I thought he was taking a picture. And so I'm like, imagine this guy, he's just trying to fist bump me. And because I was looking at the camera, he thinks I'm looking at his fist. So instead of like fist bumping him back, I'm like, that's a nice fist you got there. Like, love those knuckles. I am like smiling. And then I tried a little bit of a dramatic pose. He gave me a confused look and walked off because he had to go do his set. It was as he was walking off when I saw that look, I was like, wait, that wasn't the jovial, bro-y look that I see my neurotypical friends have in their interactions with other people. He wasn't like, oh, yeah. So I am now getting signals that I did something wrong in this interaction. But I don't know what it is. Did I not pose well enough for the picture? And then it came to me, that was a fist bump. That was a fist bump, not a picture. And so I was going to make the situation undoubtedly worse by finding this man and being like, hey, I thought you were taking a picture, which is, by the way, it would have been worse. It would have made me look more insane. Like, how much of an egomaniac am I that I'm like, hey, I'm a random woman that you don't know at all, but you probably did want a picture. Let's be real. And like, not a selfie, not a picture that you're in. You just wanted to put the camera 6 inches away from my face and get like a real, close in, like you wanted to see my pores. Just, you were really impressed. So it would have been probably worse if I had tried to address that. And that has been my history with trying to interact with people, that I do something awkward and then I follow them around and analyze the awkward thing that I did. Just make it, they're just like, okay, I thought she was insane in the first interaction. But now it's like, now it's like, I think she's like triply insane, that she can't just let it go. And now we have to like do a spreadsheet about what went wrong and what the proper interaction would have been. But I was like, I just want to talk to the guy. I just want to tell him I have to save my good name and let him know that I thought he was taking a picture, and that's why I was like doing kissy faces at his knuckles. But the guy ran another show that started right after ours ended, so he was stuck on stage. He never got off the stage. He ended our show and then was like, all right, it was like a comedy dating show was starting. So he was stuck on stage and I had to go because I was planning to drive back to Austin that night. And I thought about rushing the stage because it was an audience interaction show where people are dating. So he'll be like, hey, who's looking for a boyfriend? And I thought about raising my hand and being like, okay, I'm not looking for a boyfriend, but here's why I was vamping in the general direction of your fist. And that's what I wanted to do. But I did not get a chance because he was on stage and I had to leave. And we're all lucky that didn't end up in a Phantom of the Opera sort of situation where I just become this shadowy, ghostly figure who haunts the Riot Comedy Club looking for the guy who tried to fist bump me. I mean, it'll be like 30 years from now. They'll be like, there's this like gray-haired spinster and she lives in the attic, and they'll be like, yes, they say she's looking for a fist bump and like she never left this place. I'm telling you, very close to playing out like that. So if you ever feel like you are awkward socially, I will have you know that you have nothing on me, and that interaction was not that out of the ordinary. It just made an impression on me because I couldn't resolve it. But that's like kind of a typical day in my life. And no, reason number 386 why I should never ever leave the house. So there you go. And related to that, let me transition now, hit our transitioning into a second but related point. So that was, I went there. So the trial run was a Wednesday. I went up Tuesday night, early makeup appointment on Wednesday. I ended up staying that night. So I came back home Thursday. And then, so I got home Thursday. I thought I would be home for the weekend, but a situation played out where my husband was going sailing. The kids really wanted to come with him, including Caitlin's son. They really wanted to come with him, but just with school timing, it seemed like it wasn't going to work, even though they were doing cool stuff. Like you could walk around the docks and get candy from the boats. They were doing a trick-or-treating thing. And I really wanted my kids and Caitlin's kids to be able to be part of this. They like sailing. I love supporting other people, in the dreams that they're doing. But my husband just couldn't wait for the right time. So I arrived back in town. It's depending on traffic, 3.5 hours, the trip from Houston to Austin. So I arrived back on Thursday, and then on Friday, I just hated for the kids to miss it. So I drove those kids back down there, starting at 7 p.m. when everyone was ready. And then we had concert tickets the next day and some stuff I had to do the next morning. I drove back. All in all, I drove 8 hours starting at 7 p.m. to get the kids down to where they could sail and then come back and then be back in time for the other stuff I had going on with other kids that weekend. I tell you this because when we say village hustle, this is what we are talking about. And this is why I don't always get my 5 a.m. meditation and journaling time done after my ice bath, because I have people who depend on me to be able to live their best lives. And obviously, I was not getting up at a reasonable hour after I drove 8 hours starting at 7 p.m. And so when people ask, how do you make it work with me doing my thing, which is comedy? My husband's big thing is sailing, and then some of the kids, that's kind of their big thing also is sailing. Again, one of Caitlin's kids is into it too. How do you make it work? A lot of hustle and a lot of no sleep and a lot of not having everyday atomic habits. You got to do the same thing every day and it builds. I can't do the same thing every day. Are you kidding me? I'm trying to get this career off the ground so the Comedy Millions will come in so that I can have my 10 staff members and maybe get to the point that I can actually do my atomic habits on a daily basis, because I have my chef and my chauffeur and all of these. And guys, I'm so ready to have a live-in housekeeper. I'm not going on that tangent button, but guys, my house is in such bad shape. It's so bad. It's so bad. I can't live like this anymore. So that's just an aside. But building a career in the entertainment industry requires a ton of hustle. I've got to be certain places at certain times, got to do trial runs for my comedy show, got to make vampy faces at people's fists at comedy clubs. I mean, there's a lot on my plate. And then in order to support my kids in their passions, I got to take them places. I've got to be out and about. Yeah. And that is why, like, you just can't listen to these people who are like, you have to have a consistent routine every day. Are you kidding me? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. So that is what it looks like. It's a lot of hustle, a lot of running around from place to place and feeling kind of stressed out. And I admit, this weekend I was feeling depressed. I was feeling hopeless. I was feeling stressed out. And I realized Maybe it's because your life is insane. Yeah. Maybe it's because you haven't had anything that even remotely resembles a normal sleep schedule recently. I've also been eating way too much sugar, just sugar and carbs all the time. And I've been beating myself up about it, especially that I'm filming the special. I do not want to gain weight before it, but that ship has sailed. And so I just reminded myself, it's crazy when you are hustling for your own blue flame, that thing that you're really excited about, but you're also supporting people who depend on you, who are key components of your village. There's a more delicate way to say that, but when you're also supporting other people in what they're doing, it's crazy. And you are going to have times where you hit a low. You're going to have times where you get a little sick because you were pushing yourself too hard. You're tired. You feel depressed. You're binging on carbs all the time. That is part of it. Mm-hmm. That is a normal part of the process, and just roll with it. Be a ping pong ball on the ocean. Pong on. Just roll with it. Yes. Just roll with it. Because no one else lives lives like the listeners of this podcast and me and Caitlin, it's easy to feel like you're doing something wrong. Other people, they got their 9 square hours of sleep and did their 30 minutes of meditation, followed by 15 minutes of journaling and 20 minutes of prayer, and then their ice bath in the morning. And so they are feeling good and healthy, and they have their optimum health, and they start with a green smoothie. And then they have their, soy cardboard for lunch and all that. And so they're super healthy. So yeah, they don't have as many people depending on them with absolutely no support system like you do. So don't feel bad if you have emotional and health highs and lows that come with your hustle. It's just, we just have a lot on our plates.
Yeah.
Okay. Final thing before we get to the main topic of what if, do the special sound effect for Jen's petty corner. Jen's just going to be super petty, and that's part of this podcast today. Some man left a comment on my Instagram. Let me rewind, okay? I'm rewinding. We're restarting this topic. Hit the restarting the topic sound effect. Okay. When the Comedy Millions are here, we will actually have different sound effects for all of these. My 10 staff members, I'll have a separate staff member for each sound effect. Okay. I do not normally listen to haters. I don't read all the comments. See, what I do is I have Caitlin read the comments and she'll tell me. So if you go say something really nice on my YouTube, jfonyoutube.com, if you go say something nice on my YouTube, Caitlin might copy and paste, put that on Slack. So I see what you guys have to say, but I don't typically read comments so that the haters can't get in my head. And I get haters all the time, multiple times per week. Someone has to say something just really hostile and rude. And almost every day. I'm serious, like probably 5 days a week on some social media platform, someone just says something unbelievably insulting and rude. So this is normal. I don't pay a lot of attention to it when it happens. Sometimes I just screenshot it to have I do a roundup at the end of the year of like the best in hate for this year. But I don't pay a lot of attention to it. But some gentleman said last week, he said, "You should have stayed in radio. You are not funny." Now, he had a really unique name and I had some time. So I Googled him, and it turns out he's the organist at the cathedral of a city that I am going to soon. And what's funny is I planned to visit that cathedral. Now I am not going to because of this guy's comment, because I'm like, clearly they just employ the worst people at this place. Like, this guy is awful. And so I want to talk to you about when bad people who have their own issues, they feel like they are failures, and they're like, I suck at everything I do, so let me go leave a comment on Jen's Instagram or whatever, just whatever profile they have. Don't let them stand between you and God like I'm going to do by canceling my trip to this cathedral. It's for the other people too, because can you imagine? So like, wouldn't it be funny though? Because this guy does art too. Like I do comedy and he plays with his organ, and wouldn't it be funny? Caitlin, don't put this one on clips because I don't want him to like feel
To
like
know.
he got in my head, because he sort of didn't. Okay, he kind of did, but I'm really just saying this because I think it's a good topic. But don't put this on clips because he follows me, and I don't want him to see it. But if I were to go to that cathedral and this guy is playing the organ, it'd be some holy song like "Lord God, we worship you," and I'd be like, "You suck! This sucks!" Like this is the worst organ playing I've ever heard.
Get out.
I shouldn't have quit your day job. Wouldn't that be funny? Everyone's trying to worship the Lord through and if you've ever been in a cathedral with an organ, I mean, it's like heavy drum, and I'm like, this sucks. So. It is
Worst
for
concert ever.
Yeah. It's for other people that I am canceling my trip to visit this cathedral. But let me.
Man, that'd be such a funny clip.
That would be okay if you cut the part. Oh yeah, because if you say he's an organist, and see, I didn't block him because I feel like that gives people this sense of pride.
Yeah.
We'll talk about clips later. Maybe there is a way. Yeah, that's actually pretty funny. Okay, we should clips.jen on Instagram. Maybe we have to put that one on. If you have been hurt by people who are religious, and this could be something severe or something just, some rando on your Instagram who feels unfulfilled in their own life. And so like, who has time to leave that comment? Who has time? Like, work on your organ. You have other things that you need to be doing other than leaving comments on my Instagram. And also like, okay, you know what? Never mind. The point of this is that, you can't let the horrible people who are sometimes associated with church, religion, whatever, you can't let them get in your head. That's one of the things that fueled my atheism when I was a kid. I lived around these people that a lot of them were just not good people, but they were very into going to church. They were very outwardly, everybody had to know that they go to church and all that. And so it made it easier to be an atheist. I mean, I was an atheist for philosophical reasons. I mean, I believe that was the accurate worldview, but it certainly helped when it was like, yeah, being associated with religion makes people just the worst. And so what you have to remember, if you have been hurt on a big or a small level by people who are associated with God, is that it's like, have you ever seen someone who never does anything, but they wear the Patagonia jackets?
Oh yeah.
It's it's like they wear like a Gucci outfit and they're very condescending to other people with their Gucci bag and whatever, where it's like you live in a studio hoarder apartment and you just like smoke weed all the time, but when you're out you have to be really condescending to people because you have a Gucci purse and they don't. People who are too terrified to step into the people that they're meant to be and that they want to be, or who have like they're just like bad people with depraved issues that make them act in a certain way that they would like to hide. They like to be associated with God's brand. Just like how some people like to wear a brand that is associated with, being a fun party person or whatever. You put on that brand and then you wear those clothes and people are like, wow, I bet she just got back from a rave. She's so cool. Like I did stuff like that when I was younger. And I mean, I never did anything interesting, but I would try to sort of present myself like I do all this cool and exotic stuff because I just wanted to get in on the brand. Because if you can associate yourself with a brand, you perceive anyway that people will think certain things about you. Today is a good example of this. I'm wearing workout gear because I went to my personal trainer. You don't understand how low effort these workouts are. I'm only with her for posture. And so it's just a lot of stretching, and I'll lift a little 5-pound weight and be like, it's too hard. And it's just such a farce. But I am wearing workout gear, and I'm wearing spandex, what do you call the leggings? That's the word. So if I were to go shopping right now, people might look at me and say, that woman's into fitness. I should fist bump her. Like, hey, I'm a fitness person too. Here you go. And I just like grab their claw hand and smile at it and like, yeah. I am currently wearing a fitness brand. And so it does, just being clothed in, I don't know what brand this is, but what? Oh, it's an Amazon off-brand. It's like some Chinese generic. Okay, pretend that this is an Adidas shirt, okay? It's not, but we'll pretend. Being clothed in Adidas or Patagonia or a sporty brand, Eddie Bauer, when you step out of your house, you are now affiliated with that brand. And so let's say that I cared about how lazy I am, that I had some shame surrounding the fact that I do not care ever about moving my body. I want to sit in a cozy bed all day. I want to be carried around on a Roman litter. You know what those are? Like how Cleopatra, like it was like a bed with long poles coming out of it, and her servants would like lift it up and carry it on their shoulders. That is how I personally choose to get around everywhere. And when the Comedy Millions are here, it is how I will get around. So I'm that person. I need servants, feeding me grapes. Like, no, I'm actually kind of sensitive to grapes because they have like a high salicylate content. So yeah, servants feeding me, I don't know, freshly grilled steak. If I had shame about that, one way to deal with my deep-seated shame about who I actually am as a person would be to go put on sporty clothes, so that when you see me in the grocery store, you think that's a sporty person. She's not lazy at all. I bet this is not the first time she's gotten out of bed all day. I bet she did not sleep till noon today. I bet she did an ice bath after she hit the gym at 5 a.m. because of the way I'm dressed. The same thing goes for God. God has a brand. Let's face it, God, it's a good brand. It's based on truth. It's love. God is love. God is the source of love. When we say God is love, we're not saying what God is. We're saying what love is. Everything that is good and pure and true, just heroism, beauty, selflessness, self-sacrifice, all of that rich, pure goodness, it all comes from God. It all has a source, and that source is God. And that's a brand, so God is branded as being love. Certainly the Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, Jesus is branded as being love, as being a perfect example of self-sacrificial love, as being the ultimate good person. His mother, same thing, the ultimate good person, conceived without sin, just out there crushing it every day in terms of being nice to people and not being hateful. So you have all of these associations of religion with just love and goodness. So people who are attracted to that, some of them are genuinely seeking love and goodness. And I will say, as an atheist convert to faith, the vast majority of people I encounter are seeking love and goodness. And they might not even be great at it. They might be failing in certain ways, but they want to truly encounter love. And they want to be full of that divine energy of goodness and caring and making a positive impact in their time on this earth. And that is why they're drawn to God. And that is something that really fuels them in their faith journey. There are people, however, who just like the brand. They have deep-seated issues that they can't resolve. And so they come into religion and they get very involved in it because they want that Patagonia jacket. They think that they will seem good. They think they will seem good in society's eyes if they are very deeply involved in religion. And that's why it's often the people who are very public about it are the ones with the biggest issues. And I have a few data points on that. By the way, we are not still talking about that one comment. This is a much more broad subject now. In the general population of religious people, my impression has been it is the vast majority are people who are genuinely seeking love and goodness. When it comes to people who have any kind of public role in religion, that percentage drops pretty significantly in terms of people who are genuinely seeking love and goodness versus people who are kind of narcissists and have a lot of issues. I will say still the majority of people within these public roles are good people who are seeking love and goodness and all that. But you do get a higher percentage of people who might have issues with just narcissism or have some issues they haven't resolved that they think will be well hidden if they're very public in the faith community. You do get a higher percentage of that in those like public being seen as being involved in religion roles. And so in order to not let the bad people who are part of your faith community drive you away from God, you have to see them as wearing the Patagonia outfit when they've never climbed a rock in their lives. This sounds silly, but I think that this analogy kind of holds. That it would be like if you were a mountain climber and you were really part of the mountain climbing community. Everyone wears the Patagonia outfits, and then you see someone roll up who's not about that life at all. They follow some mountain climbing people on Instagram, but they've never climbed a hill. They've never walked up a hill in their entire lives, but they want to kind of be associated with you guys, wear the cool outfits. You can't let that make you not want to mountain climb. And so it goes with faith. You have to accept that posers will always be there. They will always be a part of your faith community because they want to be associated with the brand, because they think it glosses over all of their faults, and then they don't have to actually do some dig deeping on how messed up they are because they got the brand. Everyone thinks I climb a mountain because I have this fleece vest on, and that's what it is. And that's what you can't blame God for that, because God gives us free will. It would be kind of boring if he didn't. We'd all just be really nice. I wouldn't have done this whole segment on the podcast because God would be like, Jen, that's being really petty. So God gives us free will. He does not force us to be good people. He doesn't, set people on fire when they try to enter his holy places. He should, although I'd probably be one of the people half the time. I would get zapped. It'd be like a mosquito hitting your bug zapper. You'd be bzzz, like he'd be like, you couldn't go into the cathedral anyway, like for other reasons, Jen. But don't let bad people ruin your relationship with God. They're just drawn to it because they want the brand, because they think it covers over all of their issues that they are too terrified to resolve. So, all that is, I won't be visiting the cathedral in this one town, and that's for the best of that's for everyone. It's really for other people's sake, so that they can focus on God. Okay, so before we get to the main topic, episode 14 of the Village Hustle Patreon just came out this week. We do new episodes every week, and I went through what's going on with pulling this comedy special together again. I forget which day it was. I think this was the day I was going down to Houston. But what I do on these Village Hustle Patreons is I bring you into a specific problem I'm dealing with, and I walk you through how I think about it and what I have learned in business and in life to help me make the best decisions. So for example, in this one, I talked about the one key thing that if you have any kind of project, this is the difference maker to make it a success. It is that if you do this, it will probably be fine. And you are going to think that you can skip it. You're going to think, I probably don't need to do that. That's interesting. But if you don't skip it, It will make any project a success, whether it's some little thing you're doing at your kid's school or, you're trying to do a massive takeover of IBM. I mean, listen, this is an inclusive podcast. If you're a Fortune 500 CEO or you're a mom volunteering at your kid's school, this content is relevant to anyone. So, and I shared a couple other tips about like when you're working with any kind of vendors, any kind of people you're hiring, your heater repairman, someone who we will be calling today, or someone for your business. The key thing, the litmus test that has never led me astray for whom to hire. That is all on episode 14 of the Village Hustle Patreon. When you join, you get access to all the archives as well as the base level, which includes the after party, which we will record after this episode. So that is patreon.com/thisisjen, and the link is in the show notes. All right, let's play this video, Caitlin, of David Goggins talking about his what if moment.
When you're in that moment failing and you have to keep going, what do you say to yourself?
What if? A lot of times I'll be in a 200-mile run or something like that, and I'm all jacked up. Body's broken, mind's broken, spirit's broken. I start to say, what if I can pull this off? When I first walked into the Navy SEAL recruiter's office, he looked at me and said, there's only been 35 African Americans in 70 years make it through. You know what I said to myself? What if I can be the 36th? It's the what if I can pull off a miracle. What if I can become someone that no one thinks I can be? And just me talking about that, I have the hair going up on my arms because it makes me just like, what if?
Man, that's so powerful. What if? What if? You need to use this all the time to flip your mentality, especially when you come from a culture that, like I said at the beginning of the show, kind of makes being a dreary magpie a virtue. That is 100% the culture I came from. Actually, not my mom, but my dad and my grandfather. They were some of the finest human beings in the world, such good people, kind, loving. I can't say enough good things about them, but they were kind of negative. And it was like every year it was like, can you believe how the world is it's just falling off a cliff and everything's getting worse? They were saying that since like 1982. and at some point, even as a kid, I was like, well, you've been saying that every year. That, I remember you saying that 1992, sitting at the dinner table. Okay, the world it's ending and it's so bad, and like here we are, and it's still going. It's still all right. And I think that this I think this really matters to make sure that you don't have it in your head that being pessimistic is being realistic, because I really saw it impact my dad's health as well. And there is a part of me that thinks that he would still be around. He died suddenly of an internal bleeding issue in 2019. There is a part of me that thinks he might still be with us if he had had a different attitude. He wasn't even super negative about his health. He was just kind of logical about that. Like, well, here's the issue and we'll have to deal with it. But he was negative about everything else in life. And he seemed to think that was a good thing, to think back on his past, like what happened in Vietnam in the 60s, that if he had made this different decision, this could have turned out better. And let's still think about this like 5 hours a day and ruminate on it and be upset about it. And, and just thinking that if, money is always going to get worse and everything is going to be difficult and get worse. And again, he was a really good person, and it was important to him to be a good person. And I think at some point over the years, he started to associate being pessimistic and being negative with being a good person. Like I'm a responsible father and provider for my family because I know that life is terrible. And so I'm just taking great care of my wife and my kid by just knowing that our finances are a mess and getting worse, and the world is a mess and getting worse, and that just everything bad, will probably happen to us at some point. And what a great father figure I am for, for making sure that everyone knows that I'm aware of this. And I've often told Joe, my husband, that one of the first things I noticed about him that made me really want to make this relationship work was that he didn't confuse being a pessimist with being a realist. I met Joe at work, and it was so enchanting to me that he would be talking about politics or something with our company or something in his own life, and he'd say, look, let's be realistic. It's going to be fine. Because it wasn't based on silly optimism, but he'd say, well, I was just reading the Wall Street Journal and they had some numbers, and then if you combine them with the numbers, I looked up this study from Stanford and that had some really compelling stuff. And, this one bad thing might happen, but generally it's going to be fine. I was like, I got to get a ring on it. Like, this is what I need in my life. And to this day, it's one of my favorite things about my husband, that he does not confuse being a realist with being a pessimist. And most of us do. Think about it. Mm-hmm. If before I had brought up this topic, I had said, guys, let's talk about the state of the world, or let's talk about this problem that I'm dealing with, and I'm going to be a realist. What do you think would come out? Would you be expecting anything positive to come out of my mouth next if I had just told you I'm being a realist about this? Right?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
No.
Let's be realistic always means let's say some really negative nonsense. Like, let's just go as dark and negative as we can. If someone ever says to you, look, we got to be real, we need to be realistic here, they are always about to say something negative. And I've been trying to flip it with my kids. One of my kids was super stressed about school, and I was like, look, we have to be realistic. This is going to be fine. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, you have to do your best. That matters. Doing your best matters. But if your best is not going to be enough to get you into that one college, let's be realistic. It doesn't matter. Like, I see no correlation between adults in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, and what type of school they went to. I know miserable people who went to great schools, and I know happy people who went to great schools, and vice versa. I know people who didn't go to college who are super happy. In fact, if anything, I might see a little bit of a correlation to, like, my friends who didn't go to college are like really doing fine. Like, they didn't have to suffer under the crushing weight of student loans, for so many years. So I said, you got to be realistic. That this doesn't matter at all, and it's going to be totally fine, and you won't be thinking about any of this 10 years from now. I said, what does matter is building your future community with things like starting to think about marriage. I'm not pushing you to get married early, but just start thinking about it now. What kind of person might you like to meet? What can you do to make sure you're surrounding yourself with quality people? It's a totally normal thing that you might meet the person you end up marrying in high school, certainly in college. That would be normal, maybe right after college. These are ages where it is totally normal to meet your spouse. Now, that matters. Where you go to school does not matter. Meeting your spouse, I mean, this is like, you will have children and grandchildren. I mean, this is like generational impact. So just think about what kinds of people you are associating yourself with. Are they nice people? Do they attract other nice people? Because you could very well end up meeting your spouse through the people you are currently hanging out with. Mm-hmm. And if you are hanging out with people who are, they just care about partying, or they're really catty, or they're just always saying bad things about people or whatever, that is your network that could potentially impact the rest of your life. So that matters. Getting a low grade on this test that you studied really hard for, that doesn't matter, because you did your best, and that's all you can do. So I want you to think about that and try using that in your life. If you have kids, do it with your kids. If not, do it with your family. Just say, listen, we need to be realistic. And then say something super positive. Like, it really messes up people's mindsets. But I think it is a really good way to shift your own mindset and to recognize ways that you might be stuck in negative patterns. By the way, Caitlin, I'm watching time, and I know you need to go. So don't worry. We will get you out of here to pick up your kids on time. Can you imagine if Caitlin's little kids, it's cold and it's rainy today. The feels like temperature is like 32 and it's pouring, it's raining. Can you imagine her little kids like shivering outside?
Mommy's not
It's
here
like,
yet.
well, mommy had to do a podcast. So if I have to do the Patreon after party by myself, we can do that. I think everyone will live if it's just me on the Patreon after party. Okay, so I am watching time, Caitlin. I used to do live radio, which according to the haters, I should have stayed in. So nobody can watch time like I can. Okay, so next time you are feeling really weighed down and weak about something in your life, I want you to have that David Goggins moment where you say, what if? But what if I did make it out of this? What if it turns out actually better than I thought? The reason I bring this up, this mentality really saved me last week from, I think, getting sick and ending up in a spiral. I was feeling stressed out. This was when I did the 2 back-to-back Houston trips, like right in a row. I had just come back from Salt Lake City. We've got the Florida shows and Halloween this week. It's madness. I was feeling pretty overwhelmed and I felt a sinus infection coming on. And so me being quote unquote realistic, I was like, well, we all know how this ends like this. Okay, so this is going to get really bad. I'm going to be completely out of commission. I won't be able to enjoy Halloween. I'm going to be miserable at the Florida shows. And then Atlanta right after that, I'll be miserable. And this is because sinus infections so many times have gotten out of control with me and they just take me out of commission and doctors will never give me antibiotics, blah, blah, blah. And I just lived under that truth. I just felt that's true. That's just true. It's just in my mind, quote unquote, true that the beginnings of a sinus infection mean it's just going to be terrible. And in particular, I felt very powerless, especially that I've had trouble getting antibiotics for it in the past. I felt powerless, and that was starting to impact every minute of my life. I just felt like I didn't want to get out of bed. And I was not motivated to get anything done. I was blowing off really urgent emails like, hey, just following up on this. I just felt so weak and powerless and depressed. And at some point I realized I am not actually that sick yet. I just have a very mild sinus infection. But because I am so filled with fear and pessimism, I am letting it take me down physically. This is mental. This is feeling bad right now is like 80% mental. It's only 20% physical. And I shook myself out of it and I said, what if it's nothing? Sometimes that is the case. Not every time I have mild sinus pain, it turns into something terrible. Sometimes it's fine. And I was like, what if it's fine? What if it's better than I thought? What if I actually end up having a great week this week? What if this is just nothing? It's just no big deal. Let me tell you, the minute I shifted that mentality, the minute I said, what if, and started thinking of the good things that could very well happen, are perfectly likely to happen, I felt better. I felt less weak. I felt less tired. I could suddenly reply to those emails like, yes, well, per my previous email. I was tearing through my email. It was fine. All because I asked, what if? One of the biggest moments, the biggest moment that what if played a factor in my life. This was kind of my Goggins moment, was when I mentioned this in a previous episode, that right when I turned 40, so I had turned 40 and I'd been 40 for a year, and my weight was as high as it had ever been. So I weighed 40 to 45 pounds more than I do right now. And I was technically in overweight category. You know, according to the charts, I was overweight for my height and weight. I just kept having to buy bigger clothes. I'd buy big clothes and then those would be too tight, and I had to buy bigger clothes. And my career was just kind of stagnated. I'd written one book and I was on the radio, but it was like going nowhere. I mean, I wasn't going to get promoted, wasn't going to get paid more. So it was kind of like, okay, that's cool. I wrote a book. That's great. But it had been out for a few years. Nothing else was going on. And being a quote unquote realist, I thought this is probably the end for me of being that person I kind of always wanted to be, being at a certain weight, because I know my kibby body type, that I'm a dramatic body type. We look best being pretty thin for my particular frame, the typical type of kibby dramatic I am. It just looks best on me, and I feel best, and I am at optimum health when I am on the thin side. It makes me very happy to be on the thin side of things. I don't believe that's true for everyone, but that's me. That's where I feel like I'm in my sweet spot. And so I'd always had that vision of being someone who was at a weight that I liked, wearing clothes that I'd put them on and be like, oh, that looks amazing. Oh, I love this outfit. I feel so good in this outfit. And just having interesting career problems to solve, feeling like my career is going somewhere. I'm doing cool work, even if it were hobbies and not a career. Just feeling like I know what my blue flame is, and I'm challenged in it, and it's hard, but it's a fun kind of hard. And I'm happy with how I look while I'm doing all this. And where I was halfway through being 40, close to being 41, and I just thought, that I need to be realistic, that this is not happening. I mean, I'm in my 40s now. It's over. I've had 6 kids. I mean, women tend to gain weight after they've had kids, and that's it for me. I mean, I think I've done what I can do in my career. It's not like people start something new, brand new at this point. And time to just wrap it up, give up, just get a moo off of Amazon, sit in my bathrobe all day, phone in my job on the radio, and just give up on life, basically. Eat some chips every day and just stop caring, because that let's be realistic. I mean, that is where I am in my life. One day, I had one moment where I thought, what if? What if it's not over for me? What if the best is yet to come? What if there are things I could do with my blue flame, with my passion, that I haven't even tapped into yet? What if I could do something super fun and difficult and accomplish something that would give me a great sense of pride? What if I could lose this weight? What if, now this did seem like stupid, but I did have the thought, what if I could lose all the weight? What if I could end up weighing like less than I did when I got married? That seemed insane, but it was like, but I mean, it's not like impossible. It is not physically impossible. If I were to be arrested and thrown into a Russian gulag where they only gave me like 2 grains of rice a day and made me work on their railroad, well, yeah, I mean, I would lose the weight. I mean, it is possible. That what if moment changed everything. And it turned out that being a quote unquote realist, but in an optimistic what if way, was the right one. I did lose all the weight and more. Even with my latest sugar binge, I still weigh less than I did when I got married, and I was not overweight when I got married. I am thrilled with the weight that I'm at. I never thought that this could be just my normal everyday weight. I didn't weigh this in my 20s. The last time I was at this weight was I was 17. I was 17 or 18 the last time I weighed this, and then I have maintained this weight for years now. I mean, many years. Occasionally I'll gain back like 15 pounds, but that hasn't happened super recently, and I can always get back to where I am. But the weight has stayed off for years and years and years. And then obviously I started comedy. I mean, I didn't start comedy until probably like 18 months after that what if moment. I wrote 2 more books. One of them was a Wall Street Journal bestseller. One of them got me on the Today Show. I didn't know that could potentially be in my future. But then the biggest thing is, again, I started comedy. I had this whole different career. I would have never imagined when I had this what if moment that I would end up being a nationally touring stand-up comedian, best manager ever, like manager, like I can't believe that my manager is my manager. Like he's a legend, signed with a legendary LA manager, represented by United Talent. All of that came after. And none of it would have happened if I hadn't had that one moment of saying, what if? What if this is not the end of my dreams and me living life in a way that is really great for me and for my family? What if it's not the end of all of that? And what if potentially this could actually be the beginning of something really crazy? Actually, an example is, I don't know the details of this story. There's a little bit of my own speculation in here, but the comedian Leanne Morgan, she had been a touring comic. She had a modest fan base. She was doing all right, but I'm not sure it was even really a full-time job for her, although she was highly respected by people who knew comedy. But I mean, like, you had not heard of her. Your neighbors had not heard of Leanne Morgan. I mean, she had a relatively small fan base. And I don't know the details here. Some of this is my speculation, but when she was, I think, 53, 54, I believe she had her own what if moment of, what if I put my comedy out there and more on social media and it really gets out there and it resonates? And she hired a social media company to actually start cutting up clips and putting her clips out there. That part I'm not as sure about, but what I am sure about is she had a couple of things go viral, and now she is selling out auditoriums on her stand-up comedy tour. I ask people someone has heard of Leanne Morgan now. She's getting to household name level. And maybe she wouldn't phrase it quite this way, but I guarantee you she had a what if moment that, I mean, society would tell her as a 53-year-old woman, like, if the comedy millions haven't come in, then they're not going to. But she had her own what if moment of saying, no, what if the comedy millions are still on the horizon for me? And if I just don't give up, they will come in. And now I think she's like 57, 58 now, and her career is exploding. She is legit rich and famous. I mean, in just the classic definition of that term, all because she had her what if moment, and she went against society's programming and her own programming. And again, I did it with something small like a sinus infection, that my own programming was, oh, this is the end of my week. It's going to be so terrible. This is going to be the worst for me. And it turns out I was completely wrong. So have your own what if moments where you do not confuse being a realist with being a pessimist. Whatever it is that is weighing you down and feels impossible and is stressing you out, you have to respond to it by saying, what if? All right, that is it for this fine episode. We will go into the Patreon after party, which is available on Patreon, patreon.com/thisisjen. New episodes every Wednesday, and we will be back with you next week here on the Jen Fulwiler Show.